The massive space station called Concordia Prime floated in the darkness between stars. Ships from 12 different alien races docked at its arms, like metal flowers on a giant stem. Inside the main council chamber, representatives sat in a wide circle. The air hummed with tension and fear. Commander Jin Seoyun walked through the entrance with her small team. She wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's military. Behind her came Captain Park Min-ho and Dr. Lee Na-young. The three humans looked tiny compared to the other beings in the room. The Corvins stood 8 feet tall, with thick armor covering their bodies. Their leader, Admiral Zethkar, had scars across his face from many battles. The Etherians looked like flowing energy wrapped in beautiful robes. High Counselor Veltara's voice sounded like music when she spoke. The granite folk resembled walking mountains of stone. Jin found the seats marked for humans. They were smaller than the others and placed near the back of the room. As she sat down, she heard whispers from the other delegates. "Look how small they are," said a Corvan officer. "I heard they only live for 100 years, added an Etherian. "Their planet is just a garden world, no real dangers," rumbled a granite folk elder. Admiral Zethkar stood up. His voice boomed across the chamber. "The Devourers have destroyed 3 star systems. We need real warriors to fight them, not children from a peaceful world. The Devourers were the enemy that brought everyone together. They came from outside the galaxy in ships that learned and adapted. Every battle made them stronger. Every weapon used against them became useless after they studied it." Jin kept her face calm. She had heard this kind of talk before. On Earth, enemies always thought humans looked weak. That mistake usually cost them. Dr. Lee stood up to present her report. She spoke clearly about Devourer tactics. Her team had studied every battle. They knew how the enemy moved and thought. "The Devourers use swarm attacks," Lee explained. "They sacrifice units to learn about our weapons. Then, they adapt their defenses." Zethkar laughed. It was not a kind sound. Theory from someone who has never seen real battle. Humans have been in space for only 200 years. What do you know about galactic warfare? Lee continued anyway. "They have a command structure based on efficiency, not honor. They will do anything to win." "Anything to win?" Zethkar's voice dripped with scorn. "That sounds like something a weak species would say. Real warriors fight with honor." Live. High Counselor Veltara raised her hand for silence. Her energy form glowed brighter. "We should listen to all ideas. The Devourers have beaten our conventional forces." "Because we have not sent enough ships," Zethkar replied. "My fleet will crush them. We just need proper warrior races leading the attack." Jin finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, but it carried across the room. "What role do you want humans to play?" "That supply lines," Zethkar said without hesitation. "Logistics support. Leave the fighting to real soldiers." Captain Park shifted in his seat. Jin put a hand on his arm to keep him calm. She had seen that look in Park's eyes before. It was the same look he had in Afghanistan when insurgents called human soldiers weak. "We accept," Jin said simply. The other humans looked surprised. Park's jaw tightened. Lee frowned. But Jin had a plan. The meeting continued for hours. Each race promised ships and soldiers. The Corvans would lead the main attack. The Etherians would provide energy weapons. The granite folk would build defenses. Humans would carry supplies and stay in the back. As the delegates filed out, Veltara approached Jin. "I am sorry about Admiral Zethkar. He means no insult. Corvans respect only strength they can see." "We understand," Jin replied. "Every species has its own way of thinking about war." Veltara's energy form flickered with curiosity. "You are not angry? Most races would demand respect." Jin smiled. It was not a happy smile. Respect is earned in battle, Not in meetings. The human delegation returned to their small ship. It was tiny compared to the Corvan dreadnoughts or Etherian energy vessels. The humans called it the Soul's Pride. In the ship's briefing room, Park finally spoke. "Commander, why did we accept the logistics role?" "Demanded what?" Jin interrupted. "To be in the front lines where they can watch us fail? No. Let them think we are weak. It has worked before." Lee understood first. "You want them to underestimate us." "The Corvans have never fought an enemy like the Devourers," Jin explained. "They think honor and direct attack will work. When it fails, they will need us." Park nodded slowly. "And by then, we will be in position." "Exactly. Start preparing the special teams. Tell them to study Devourer footage. I want to know every pattern, every weakness." The next day brought terrible news. Long-range sensors detected a massive Devourer fleet moving toward Corvan space. Zethkar's home system was in danger. The Admiral called for immediate action. His fleet would meet the enemy in open space. Traditional formation, fighting. Ship against ship, in honorable combat. Jin watched the fleet prepare to leave Concordia Prime. Massive Corvan ships moved like floating cities. Their weapons could destroy planets. Their shields could stop anything the galaxy had seen before. The human ships tagged along behind. Small and quiet, easy to ignore. "Think they will win?" Park asked. Jin looked at the tactical displays. The Devourers had adapted to every weapon used against them. They had learned. From every defeat, the Corvan attack would be like all the others. "No," she said. "But that is not the point. They need to learn what we are really fighting. And we need to see the Devourers in action." Dr. Lee joined them on the bridge. "I have been thinking about what the survivors said. The Devourers do not fight like any biological species. They fight like a machine that learns. Or like an army of ants," Park added. "Coordinated. Willing to sacrifice individuals for the group." Jin nodded. "Earth prepared us for this kind of enemy. We just need to show the galaxy what humans learned from our wars." The combined fleet jumped to hyperspace. Ahead waited the Corvan home system. Behind them, Concordia Prime continued its preparations for evacuation. Everyone expected the worst. Only the humans expected to win. But not in the way anyone else imagined. The Corvan home system blazed with the light of 1,000 suns. Admiral Zethkar's fleet spread across space in perfect battle formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of war engineering. Weapons that could crack moons. Shields that had never been broken. "Today we show these machine creatures what real warriors can do," Zethkar announced over the fleet communications. His voice carried the confidence of 100 victories. The human ships stayed in the back. Jin watched from the Soul's Pride as the mighty Corvan dreadnoughts moved into attack position. Their formation was beautiful. Precise. Everything military academies taught about proper fleet combat. "It looks impressive," Captain Park said. He studied the tactical display with professional interest. "It does," Jin agreed. "Against any normal enemy, this would work perfectly." Dr. Lee pointed to her scanner readings. "The Devourers are not normal. Look at their approach pattern." The enemy fleet looked like a dark cloud spreading across space. No formation. No obvious order. Just thousands of ships moving together like a swarm of insects. "They are not trying to fight ship to ship," Lee continued. "They want to surround and overwhelm." The battle began with Corvan precision. Their massive guns fired in synchronized volleys. Energy beams bright as stars reached across space. The first Devourer ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Zethkar's victory cry echoed through the communications. "See how they die. Our weapons are superior." But Jin watched the scanner readings. The Devourers were learning. Each shot that destroyed one ship taught the others how to defend. Energy signatures, weapon frequencies, attack patterns, all of it went into their collective knowledge. Second volley is less effective, Park observed. Their shields are adapting. The third volley barely scratched the Devourer ships. By the fourth, the enemy had complete immunity to Corvan weapons. Now the swarm attacked. Devourer ships moved like angry bees. They swarmed individual Corvan vessels, surrounded them, tore them apart with weapons that changed and adapted every second. This is impossible. Zethkar's voice had lost its confidence. Our weapons should work. Our shields are perfect. A Corvan dreadnought exploded, then another. The perfect formation became chaos as captains tried to save their ships. But there was nowhere to run. The Devourers were everywhere. Jin activated her recording systems. Document everything, she told her crew. Battle patterns, adaptation rates, command responses. The Soul's pride stayed hidden among the supply ships. Human vessels were small and quiet, easy to overlook. The Devourers focused on the big threats, the obvious targets. Dr. Lee analyzed the incoming data. They learn incredibly fast. But look at this pattern. They study technology. They adapt to weapons and shields. But they do not learn from irregular behavior. Explain, Jin ordered. When that Corvan captain tried to ram his ship into their formation, it caused massive confusion. They were not prepared for a suicide attack. Park understood immediately. They expect logical tactics, military doctrine, things that make sense. Exactly. They are like a computer trying to understand why someone would throw their life away for no strategic gain. The battle was ending. The proud Corvan fleet limped away from their home system. Half their ships were destroyed or crippled. Zethkar's flagship barely escaped. The humans followed the retreat back to Concordia Prime. Their ships were undamaged. Forgotten. The Devourers had not considered them worth attacking. In the emergency council session, Zethkar looked like a broken warrior. His armor was scorched. His confidence was gone. They adapted to everything, he reported. Our best weapons became useless in minutes. They fight like no enemy we have ever faced. High Counselor Veltara's energy form flickered with fear. If the Corvans cannot defeat them, what hope do we have? Should we prepare for evacuation? Corvans contradisqua. The other delegates murmured, agreement. The granite folk talked about retreating to their deep worlds. The Etherians spoke of hiding in energy dimensions. Dr. Lee stood up. The Devourers can be beaten, but not with conventional tactics. Zethkar looked at her with tired eyes. Your theories mean nothing now, human. I have seen them in battle. They cannot be defeated. You attacked them like you would attack another galactic race, Lee continued. But they are not like us. They think like a hive mind. Like insects. Insects? Veltara asked. On Earth, we had creatures called army ants. They moved in swarms, overwhelmed their enemies, adapted to threats, but they could be defeated by those who understood their nature. Jin joined the discussion. Dr. Lee is right. The Devourers fight like Earth's army ants crossed with learning machines. They expect logical military responses. What do you suggest? Zethkar asked. His voice held no hope. Guerrilla warfare, hit-and-run attacks, unpredictable tactics, things that do not follow military doctrine. Park added, on Earth, small forces often defeated larger ones by refusing to fight the enemy's way. The alien delegates looked confused. Galactic warfare had always followed certain rules. Honor, formation fighting, logical tactics. You want us to fight without honor? A granite folk elder asked. We want you to fight to win, Jin replied. The Devourers do not care about honor. They care about efficiency. We need to be inefficient, chaotic, human. Zethkar shook his head. Korvans do not hide and strike from shadows. We are warriors. And how did that work against the Devourers? Park's voice was quiet, but sharp. The Admiral had no answer. His warrior pride had led to disaster. Veltara spoke carefully. What exactly are you proposing? Jin looked around the room. Give us operational control of special forces. Let us show you how humans fight when survival is at stake. The supply and logistics teams? Zethkar almost laughed. You want to lead with cargo haulers? Those cargo haulers have been studying Devourer tactics while your warriors were dying, Jin replied. We know their patterns, their weaknesses, how they think. The debate continued for hours. Most delegates wanted to try one more conventional attack. A larger fleet. Better coordination. Surely they could overwhelm the enemy with numbers. Finally, Veltara made a decision. We will try the human approach, but only as support for our main battle plan. Jin accepted. It was more than she had expected. We will need access to all tactical data, and permission to position our ships where we think best. For logistics support, of course, Zethkar agreed. Jin smiled that same cold smile. Of course, for logistics. As the meeting broke up, Park whispered to his commander. Think they will give us enough freedom to work? They will, Jin replied, because their conventional plans will fail again. And when they do, they will be desperate enough to try anything. Dr. Lee joined them. I have been analyzing the Devourer ship patterns. There are gaps in their formation, places where a small, fast ship could penetrate their defenses. Start preparing infiltration teams, Jin ordered. Tell them to study every urban warfare manual we have. The Devourers are about to learn why Earth produced such effective soldiers. Outside the station, long-range sensors detected new movement. The Devourer fleet was advancing again. This time, toward Concordia Prime itself. The final battle was coming. And humanity was ready to show the galaxy what real warfare looked like. The Devourer fleet appeared at the edge of the Concordia Prime system like a plague of metal locusts. Their ships moved in the same chaotic swarm pattern that had destroyed the Korvans. But this time, they were bigger, stronger. They had learned from their previous battle. Admiral Zethkar stood in the command center, his face grim. All ships, prepare for coordinated assault. We will not make the same mistakes as before. The Galactic fleet formed up in a new pattern. Etherian energy ships in the center. Korvan heavy cruisers on the flanks. Granite Folk Fortress ships as mobile shields. It looked impressive on the tactical displays. Jin watched from her position in the rear. The Soul's Pride and other human ships were officially part of the logistics train. Supply vessels, medical support. Nothing important enough for the enemy to target first. They are going to try the same thing with different formations, Captain Park observed. Different arrangement, same strategy. And the Devourers will adapt just as quickly, Dr. Lee added. Maybe faster. They have more data now. The battle began exactly as Jin expected. The Galactic fleet opened with coordinated fire. Every ship shooting at once. A wall of energy and projectiles racing toward the enemy swarm. The Devourers took heavy losses in the first minutes. Ships exploded across their formation. But Jin could see their shields and armor changing. Learning. Adapting to each new weapon signature. Second wave, Zethkar commanded. The effect was already weaker. Devourer ships that should have been destroyed merely suffered damage. Their defenses had evolved. By the third coordinated attack, the enemy was almost immune. Now they began their counterattack. The swarm moved like water flowing around rocks. They surrounded individual ships, cut them off from support, overwhelmed them with numbers, and adapted weapons. All ships, Fall back to defensive positions. Veltara's musical voice carried a note of desperation. But there was nowhere to go. The Devourers were everywhere. Fast ships darted between the heavy galactic vessels. They struck and vanished before defenders could respond. Jin activated her communication system. All human vessels, begin Operation Mosquito. Finally, Park muttered. He had been waiting for this order. Small human ships broke away from the main fleet. They moved in erratic patterns. No formation, no obvious strategy. To the aliens, it looked like panic, like logistics, ships running from the battle. The Devourers ignored them. These were not threats, just small, weak vessels fleeing the combat zone. That was their first mistake. Captain Park's ship, the Busan Runner, approached a Devourer cruiser from below. The enemy sensors focused on the large galactic ships ahead. They did not notice one small human vessel. Park's team had spent weeks studying Devourer ship designs. They knew where the waste disposal ports were, where the maintenance hatches were located, all the small openings that big warships used for routine operations. The Busan Runner attached itself to a waste port like a parasite. Human soldiers in environmental suits cut through the hull using industrial tools. Not military weapons. Just cutting torches and metal saws. Inside the Devourer ship, the humans found corridors filled with mechanical components and biological growths. The enemy had never designed for internal defense. Why would they? No galactic species fought inside ships. Park's team planted explosives at key junctions. Not sophisticated military charges. Simple mining explosives. Crude, but effective. The Devourer cruiser exploded from within. Its death confused the nearby enemy ships. Their sensors showed no external attack. No energy weapons. How had it been destroyed? Across the battle zone, other human teams repeated the same tactic. Small ships attached like limpets. Soldiers cut their way inside. Explosions gutted enemy vessels from within. The Devourers tried to adapt. They sealed their waste ports, covered their maintenance hatches. But humans found new entry points. Air recycling vents. Communication array housings. Anywhere big enough for a person to crawl through. What are the humans doing? Zethkar demanded. His tactical display showed Devourer ships exploding for no apparent reason. Internal sabotage, Jin replied calmly. We are fighting inside their ships. Inside? But that is not how space combat works. It is how human combat works. We go where the enemy does not expect us. Dr. Lee's voice came over the communication channel. I have analysis of Devourer internal structure. Sending data to all human teams. The intelligence was exactly what the soldiers needed. Structural weak points. Command node locations. Life support centers. Everything necessary to cripple a ship from within. The Devourers began to panic. Their adaptation algorithms were designed for external threats. Energy weapons. Projectiles. Things that made sense in space warfare. They could not adapt to enemies that appeared inside their own ships. High Counselor Veltara watched the battle with growing amazement. The humans are winning? Not winning, Jin corrected. Surviving, and teaching the enemy to fear us. More Devourer ships died to internal explosions. The swarm formation began to break apart as ships tried to protect themselves from boarding actions. But the aliens were learning too. Zethkar watched human tactics with professional interest. They fight like no species I have ever seen. Completely without honor. Completely effective. Honor is a luxury. Park's voice crackled over the radio from inside another enemy ship. Survival is necessity. An Etherian captain tried to copy human tactics. His energy beings attempted to infiltrate a Devourer vessel. But they moved too obviously. Too directly. The enemy detected and destroyed them. You are doing it wrong, Jin advised. Do not attack the strongest points. Find the weakest ones. Be unpredictable. A granite folk ship tried ramming attacks, inspired by human boarding actions, but their massive vessel was too obvious. Too slow. The Devourers adapted quickly. It is not about being brave, Lee explained over the tactical channel. It is about being clever. Use their expectations against them. Slowly, some alien crews began to understand. A Corvan team followed human soldiers into a Devourer ship. They saw how humans moved through tight spaces, how they used improvised weapons, how they struck where the enemy was not prepared. This is not warfare, one Corvan warrior complained. This is pest control. Exactly, Park replied. He was setting charges on a Devourer command center. We are the pests, and pests are very hard to kill. The battle turned when the aliens began truly cooperating with human tactics. Etherian energy beings provided distraction, while humans boarded enemy ships. Corvan warriors followed human teams to learn their methods. Granite folk ships created cover for small human vessels. The Devourers found themselves fighting an enemy they could not understand. Ships that should have been easy targets became dangerous threats. Small vessels that appeared harmless carried deadly cargo. Their adaptation algorithms began to fail. Every time they learned to counter one human tactic, the humans invented a new one. Earth's history of constant warfare had taught them to be endlessly creative with violence. As the last Devourer ships retreated from Concordia Prime, Admiral Zethkar looked at the battle reports with wonder. Impossible. A few small ships defeated a fleet that destroyed half my armada. Small ships with the right tactics, Jin corrected. And crews who understood the real nature of war. Veltara's energy form flickered with new respect. I apologize for underestimating your species, Commander. We thought humans were fragile because you are small and short-lived. Jin smiled grimly. We are fragile. That is why we learned to be deadly. Survival requires adaptation. The victory was incomplete. The main Devourer force still existed somewhere in the galaxy, but for the first time, an alien fleet had been forced to retreat from human tactics. Dr. Lee analyzed the enemy withdrawal patterns. They are regrouping, learning from this battle. When they return, they will be ready for our boarding tactics. Then we will be ready with new tactics, Park said. He was treating wounds from his latest boarding action. Humans always adapt faster than our enemies expect. The Galactic Fleet began preparations for the next phase of the war. But now, the planning sessions included human voices, human strategies, human ways of thinking about conflict. The galaxy was finally learning what Earth had always known. In real war, there were no rules, except survival. The Devourers returned to Concordia Prime 3 weeks later with a new strategy. This time, they did not come as a swarm. They came as a siege force. Massive ships surrounded the station at long range. They would starve the defenders out. They learned from our boarding tactics. Dr. Lee reported to the Emergency Council. Now they stay too far away for small ships to reach them. Admiral Zethkar studied the tactical displays with frustration. We cannot attack them at that distance, and we cannot leave the station undefended. End quote. The alien delegates looked defeated before the battle even began. The Devourers were adapting faster than galactic forces could counter-adapt. Commander Jin listened to the debate with calm attention. The aliens were thinking like defenders, like victims waiting to be attacked. We do not need to go to them, Jin said finally. What do you mean? High Counselor Veltara asked. They want to besiege Concordia Prime. So we let them think they have trapped us, while we prepare our real strategy. Captain Park understood immediately. Urban warfare. Turn the station itself into a weapon. Exactly. The Devourers expect space combat. Ship against ship. They are not prepared for infantry fighting inside a space station. Zethkar looked confused. But they are not trying to board us. They are staying at long range. Jin smiled. They are not trying to board us yet. But siege warfare always ends the same way. Eventually, the attackers must come inside to finish the job. Dr. Lee pulled up architectural plans of Concordia Prime. The station has thousands of corridors, maintenance tunnels, service passages. Perfect terrain for defensive warfare. You want to let them board us? A granite folk elder asked in horror. We want to make them board us, Jin corrected. On our terms. In terrain we have prepared. The next few days were busy ones for human teams. They mapped every passage on the station, identified choke points, placed improvised weapons in hidden locations. But they did not work alone. Alien crews watched and learned. Korvan warriors began to understand human concepts of defensive preparation. Etherian energy beings learned to hide in power conduits. Granite folk discovered they could block passages with their stone bodies. This is not honorable combat, Zethkar complained as he watched humans turn a cafeteria into a killing field. Honor is for peacetime, Park replied. He was rigging industrial equipment to explode when triggered. War is for winning. Jin established command centers throughout the station. Not one central location, but dozens of small ones, connected by maintenance tunnels the Devourers would never find. Decentralized command structure, she explained to the alien officers. Cut off one head, and 10 others. Keep fighting. The concept horrified species that valued clear hierarchy and chain of command. But they were beginning to understand human logic. Survival mattered more than organization. Dr. Lee spent her time studying Devourer behavioral patterns. They are creatures of efficiency. They will board the station at the most logical points. Docking bays, airlocks, main entrances. So we make those areas into traps, Park added, and force them to enter where we want them. The siege continued for another week. The Devourers bombarded the station's outer defenses but did not try to close the distance. They were patient, methodical, waiting for the defenders to weaken. But the defenders were not weakening. They were preparing. Human teams showed alien crews how to fight in confined spaces, how to use furniture as cover, how to turn everyday objects into weapons. The lessons were uncomfortable for species raised on honor and fair combat. Why do humans know so much about this kind of fighting? Veltara asked during one training session. Because Earth taught us, Jin replied. Our homeworld was never peaceful. We had thousands of wars, city fighting, house-to-house combat, survival in places where everything wanted to kill us. The breakthrough came when long-range sensors detected Devourer assault craft launching from their siege ships. The enemy had finally decided to board the station. All teams to positions, Jin commanded. Let them come to us. The Devourer boarding craft aimed for the main docking bays, just as Dr. Lee had predicted. They cut through the outer doors with weapons that had adapted to resist all known defenses. But the docking bays were empty. No defenders, no resistance. Just open space leading deeper into the station. The Devourers advanced cautiously. Their sensors showed no immediate threats. Their adaptation algorithms prepared for conventional station defense. Fixed gun positions, shield barriers, logical military responses. Instead, they found corridors that seemed normal but were actually carefully prepared battlefields. When the first Devourer squad rounded a corner, industrial machinery activated. Heavy cargo containers fell from above. Emergency blast doors sealed escape routes. The trapped squad was destroyed not by weapons, but by the station's own infrastructure turned against them. First contact successful, Park reported from his hidden position. They are confused by environmental kills. More Devourer forces poured into the station. They spread out through the main corridors, trying to establish control points. But every passage led to new surprises. Humans attacked from maintenance shafts, appeared from ceiling panels, struck from behind ventilation grills. They used the station's layout like a three-dimensional maze. The Devourers tried to adapt. They sealed ventilation systems. They posted guards at maintenance entrances. But the station had thousands of such openings. It was impossible to watch them all. Worse, the defenders were not just humans anymore. Alien crews had learned to fight like humans. They abandoned honor and embraced survival. Corvan warriors hid in supply closets and ambushed passing patrols. Etherian energy beings traveled through power cables to appear behind enemy lines. Granite folk warriors wedged themselves into narrow passages and became unmovable obstacles. This is madness. A Devourer commander transmitted in binary code that Dr. Lee intercepted. They fight without logic, without pattern. That is the point, Lee replied over the same frequency. She had learned to speak their machine language. Logic is predictable. Madness is not. The station became a labyrinth of death for the invading forces. Every room might contain enemies. Every corridor could be a trap. The Devourer's numerical advantage meant nothing in such confined spaces. Admiral Zethkar found himself fighting beside Captain Park in a service tunnel barely wide enough for one person. The proud Corvan warrior was learning to crawl through spaces that would have shamed him weeks earlier. This is not how I imagined my final battle, Zethkar admitted as they prepared an ambush. Final battles rarely match our imagination, Park replied. They are usually desperate and ugly and personal. The Corvan nodded. He was beginning to understand human philosophy. Survival required abandoning pride. High Counselor Veltara coordinated defense from a command center hidden in the station's waste processing facility. The elegant Etherian was learning to think like a human guerrilla fighter. Sector 7 is under heavy attack, she reported to Jin. Should we send reinforcements? No, Jin replied. Let them take Sector 7. Then we seal the blast doors and flood it with toxic gas from the chemical storage units. The plan worked perfectly. The Devourers captured what they thought was a strategic position. Then they died as industrial chemicals filled their breathing systems. You are learning to think like a human, Park told Veltara, with approval. I am learning to think like someone who wants to live, she corrected. The battle raged for hours through the station's corridors. But gradually, the Devourer advance slowed. Their adaptation algorithms could not process the constant stream of illogical attacks. Every time they learned to counter one tactic, the defenders invented something new. The final blow came when Jin led a team through the station's central power core. They placed explosives not to destroy the station, but to overload specific systems. The resulting electromagnetic pulse burned out Devourer electronics throughout the invaded sections. Suddenly, the enemy forces found themselves cut off from their swarm intelligence. Individual units could not adapt without connection to the collective. Now, Jin commanded, human and alien forces attacked the isolated Devourer units from all directions. Without their learning network, the enemy soldiers fought like individual machines, dangerous but predictable. The surviving Devourers retreated to their boarding craft, but Park's teams had sabotaged those during the battle. Half the escape vehicles exploded on launch. The others limped back to their siege ships with heavy casualties. In the aftermath, the station looked like a war zone. Corridors were blackened with explosives. Walls were torn open for improvised fighting positions. It was ugly and brutal and completely effective. Zethkar looked around at the destruction with new eyes. You turned a space station into a fortress, without honor, without glory, but with total victory. War is not about honor, Jin replied. It is about making the other side stop fighting. Dr. Lee analyzed the retreating Devourer transmissions. They are confused, demoralized. They cannot understand how we defeated them. Because they think like machines, Park added. Machines cannot understand human determination. The siege of Concordia Prime was over. But the war was just beginning. The Devourers would adapt and return. But now the galaxy had learned to fight like humans. And that changed everything. The War Council met in the damaged remains of Concordia Prime's main chamber. Blast marks scarred the walls. Emergency lighting cast long shadows. But the mood was different than before. For the first time since the Devourers appeared, the galactic species had hope. Commander Jin stood before the assembled delegates. Her uniform was dirty and torn from the station fighting. She looked tired, but determined. "We know where they come from," she announced. Dr. Lee activated a holographic display. It showed star charts and sensor data collected during the siege. The retreating Devourer ships led us back to their source. A factory world in the Kepler 442 system. Admiral Zethkar leaned forward. His armor bore new scars from fighting in the station corridors. A factory world? An entire planet converted into a machine for producing Devourer ships and soldiers, Lee explained. Automated, heavily defended, the source of their entire invasion force. High Counselor Veltara's energy form flickered with concern. "If we attack such a place with conventional forces, we will lose," Jin interrupted. "Conventional forces cannot penetrate those defenses. But we are not going to use conventional forces." Captain Park joined the presentation. His face showed the strain of weeks of desperate fighting. "We are going to infiltrate the factory world, get inside their production centers, destroy them from within." The alien delegates murmured among themselves. The concept of infiltrating an enemy homeworld went against every principle of galactic warfare. It would be a suicide mission, a Granite Folk elder rumbled. "Yes," Jin agreed simply. "It would be. But it would also end the war." Zethkar stood up slowly. The proud Corvin warrior looked around the room at his fellow delegates. "I will volunteer for this mission." Grever, 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 Grever. Gasps filled the chamber. A senior fleet commander volunteering for a suicide mission was unthinkable in galactic military tradition. "Admiral," Veltara began, "your honor and position mean nothing if the galaxy is destroyed." Zethkar finished. "The humans have taught me that survival requires sacrifice. I am ready to make that sacrifice." Other volunteers began to step forward. Etherian energy specialists, Granite Folk engineers, Corvin warriors. Species that had barely acknowledged human existence weeks earlier now trusted human leadership with their lives. Jin felt the weight of their faith. These beings were offering to die because they believed in human tactics, in human determination. "The mission will require a mixed team," she explained. "Human infiltration specialists, alien technical experts, everyone working together using tactics the enemy cannot predict." Dr. Lee presented the battle plan. "The factory world is surrounded by defensive platforms, but they are designed to stop fleets, not small ships. We can approach using asteroid fields for cover. Once we reach the surface, we split into teams," Park added. "Multiple targets, maximum confusion. Even if some teams fail, others might succeed." The plan was simple in concept but deadly in execution. Small ships would carry volunteer teams to the factory world. They would land separately and attack key production facilities. The goal was not to capture territory but to cause so much damage that the entire system would collapse. "How many ships will we need?" Zethkar asked. 12, Jin replied. "Small, fast vessels that can avoid detection, each carrying a 5-person team. 60 volunteers for a suicide mission," Veltara calculated. 60 volunteers to save the galaxy, Jin corrected. The preparations took 2 weeks. Human engineers worked with alien technicians to modify ships for stealth approach. The vessels were stripped of everything except engines, life support, and weapons. Jin chose her team carefully. Park would lead infiltration. Lee would handle technical sabotage. She would coordinate overall strategy. For the alien members, she selected warriors who had fought beside humans in the station battle. Beings who understood human tactics. Zethkar commanded his own team of mixed species. The Korvan admiral had learned to think like a human guerrilla fighter. His tactical planning now included deception, misdirection, and acceptable losses. "I never imagined I would plan my death so carefully," he told Jin during the final briefing. "Death is only the price of failure," Jin replied. "Success means we go home." "Right. Do you believe that? Or are you saying it for morale?" Jin considered the question honestly. "I believe we have a chance. Humans have survived impossible odds before. Usually, by refusing to accept defeat." The 12 ships launched from Concordia Prime on different trajectories. They would approach the factory world separately to avoid detection. Once there, they would coordinate attacks through quantum-encrypted communications. The journey took 5 days through hyperspace. Jin used the time to review intelligence data with her team. The factory world was called Devour Prime in human files. It had once been a garden world like Earth. Now it was a metal sphere covered with production facilities. They consumed the entire planetary ecosystem, Lee observed. Converted all biological matter into industrial capacity. Like a virus that ate its host, Park added grimly. The Soul's Pride dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Sensors immediately detected massive defensive installations. Weapons platforms that could destroy entire fleets. But they were positioned to intercept large formations, not individual small ships. "Beginning stealth approach," Jin announced to her team. "From here on, we maintain communication silence until we reach the surface." The small ship drifted through the outer system using momentum and gravity assists. Its engines stayed cold to avoid detection. Other human vessels were doing the same thing from different directions. Devour Prime grew larger in the viewports as they approached. The planet's surface crawled with mechanical activity. Massive factories stretched across continents. Shipyards orbited overhead like metal rings. "Landing zone confirmed," Park whispered. "Abandoned mining complex. Northern Hemisphere." The Soul's Pride touched down in a canyon between 2 dormant strip mines. The landing was rough and silent. Around the planet, other teams were making similar landings. Jin suited up with her team. Their equipment was simple and effective. Explosives that looked like mining charges. Weapons that appeared to be industrial tools. Everything designed to avoid detection by security systems, expecting military threats. The surface of Devour Prime was a wasteland of metal and machinery. The original atmosphere had been replaced with industrial gases. Overhead, transport ships moved in constant streams between the production facilities. "Target 1 is 12 kilometers northeast," Lee reported through the team's short-range communicator. "Primary antimatter production facility." They moved across the industrial landscape like ghosts. Human infiltration training, combined with alien technical knowledge, made them nearly invisible to automated security systems. The antimatter facility was a massive complex surrounded by energy barriers. But the barriers were designed to contain explosions, not keep out infiltrators. Park's team found maintenance tunnels that led directly under the defensive perimeter. Inside the facility, they encountered devourer workers for the first time. The creatures were part machine, part biological organism. They moved with mechanical precision, but showed no awareness of intruders. "They are focused entirely on production," Lee observed. "No security protocols for internal threats." The team planted their explosives at key support structures, not random destruction, but carefully planned demolition that would cause maximum cascading damage. Similar scenes played out across Devour Prime as the other teams reached their targets. Zethkar's group attacked the central command nexus. Etherian teams infiltrated the power distribution centers. Granite folk engineers targeted structural weak points in the orbital shipyards. The coordinated attack began exactly at the planned moment. 60 explosions across the planet created a chain reaction of destruction. Production facilities collapsed. Power grids failed. Transport networks shut down. But the teams paid a terrible price. Half the volunteers died in the initial attacks. Others were trapped as security systems finally activated. Jin's team was pinned down in the antimatter facility as Devourer security forces surrounded them. The mission was complete, but escape seemed impossible. "This is it," Park said calmly. He checked his weapon one final time. "Good fight, everyone." Then Zethkar's voice crackled over the communicator. "All teams, this is Admiral Zethkar. I am initiating final protocol. End of video." The Corvan had saved one last surprise. His ship, hidden in orbit, began broadcasting human military communications on all frequencies. Old Earth battle songs, radio chatter, from historical conflicts, the voices of human warriors from across the centuries. The effect on the Devourer collective was immediate and catastrophic. Their adaptation algorithms tried to process the flood of human military data, but human warfare was too chaotic, too emotional, too illogical for machine intelligence to understand. The enemy systems crashed. Security forces stopped functioning. The survivors were able to escape, as the factory world's defenses turned against each other in confusion. Not all the teams made it home. Zethkar died with his ship when the orbital defenses exploded. Many others gave their lives to ensure the mission's success. But Devour Prime was finished. The factory world burned as its own automated systems destroyed each other. The Devourer invasion fleet found itself cut off from reinforcement and resupply. In the months that followed, the scattered enemy forces were hunted down by galactic fleets using human tactics. The swarm intelligence that had made them so dangerous became a weakness when their central coordination was destroyed. The war ended not with a great battle, but with mop-up operations. Small human ships led combined fleets in pursuit of the last Devourer remnants. The galaxy learned to fight like Earth's warriors. In the rebuilt council chambers of Concordia Prime, a memorial wall honored those who died at Devour Prime. Human and alien names side by side. Warriors who had learned that survival required sacrifice. High Counselor Veltara stood before the memorial with Jin. "Your species saved us all. We will not forget the lessons you taught us." Jin touched Zethkar's name on the wall. The proud admiral had died learning to think like a human soldier. The lessons were simple. Win at any cost. Survive by any means. Fight like everything depends on you. Because sometimes, Park added, joining them at the memorial, everything does depend on you. The galaxy was safe. The Devourers were defeated. And everyone finally understood that humans were not fragile at all. They were the most dangerous species in the universe when survival was at stake.